Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to get through this thing called Mix CD. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I love making Mix CDs. Each week, we give our guests a theme and an 80-minute time limit for which songs they're going to pick for their Mix CD. This week, I am talking about a playlist called The Inevitability of Jawsomeness. What is that, you say? Well, I have here the creator of said playlist. On here today, he is one of the co-hosts of Franchise Paradiso. He's a writer for SipPop.com, and he focuses on the Oscars and all around just good guy, frequent guest. I've got Heath Lynch here. Heath, how's it going?
It's going well, Mike. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
So, we have talked about this before about how this was a thing that you had back in the day. So,
Yes.
why don't we start with give me the origin story of this? What radioactive spider bit this? What did this playlist parents get shot in an alley and scream Martha? Like what's up?
Martha. Yeah. So this all started back in, for me, high school.
Mhm.
I think I would want to say either 2001 or 2002 is when this started, as a means of sharing music with friends. So it's called The Inevitability of Jawsomeness, which is just our silly, goofy way of saying cool things are coming. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. You're going to like it. There's no way you're not going to like it. That was kind of the vibe behind it. And instead of saying awesomeness, we said jawsomeness, because Street Sharks is an amazing show that should not be forgotten, and they don't say awesome, they say jawsome. And I am a 90s kid at heart, so that's where that comes from. And so
Nice.
where this really came from was just the desire to share music with friends and have them learn about the bands, artists, songs, what have you, that you enjoy, and vice versa, for them to share music with you. So everyone could find more music, because take a trip with me down memory lane, young lanes. There used to not be something called Spotify,
L
iTunes
L.
Radio, or
Yeah.
all these things where every disposable artist song ever that's ever been created is pretty much right at your fingertips immediately all the time. That just wasn't a thing. Now, it eventually became a thing as we were growing up, because we were growing up in the technology age, and we discovered it through things called Napster and LimeWire. But that was,
A LimeWire drop. I cannot believe
but I mean, it's
LimeWire.
real.
It's
This
true.
was a thing,
It
Mike.
is.
You remember?
I do remember because I was an active user on LimeWire once upon a time.
There
So
were there were so many track_ones downloaded
mhm.
that you had to go back and retitle them later.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah, the basic conceit is this: before the time where every song that's ever been made was at your fingertips, the only way you could get new music was by people sharing them, because
Mhm.
you had to put sweat equity into it. And what I mean by that is you had to go buy CDs, vinyl records, and you could only do that with money. You would be working and you'd get a job, and you'd have to decide, I have X amount of money from this paycheck, and Y amount needs to go to gas so I can keep getting to school and keep getting to my job, and maybe a little bit's going to go to a trip to Taco Bell, maybe a ticket to the movie theater. But I'm feeling the urge to get a new CD. And so you decide, all right, I'm going to set aside 10, 12, 15, maybe for the really expensive ones, 18, $20 for a new CD. And you go to Best Buy and you walk slowly, diligently through the aisles to try to find something that you like, because they used to have aisles and aisles of these, believe it or not. And
Yes,
it was
they did.
great. It was awesome. And then you'd buy a CD, and then you'd spend the next 30 years of your life trying to rip the fucking sticker off the CD because you couldn't open the damn thing. And
Yeah.
even when you finally got the sticker off, you wouldn't get it off because it would never rip off cleanly. And then there'd be gunky residue on your CD case for all time and eternity. And no, this is not traumatic experience talking, I
No,
swear.
absolutely not. No.
But
Anybody
but
who
the
grew up in the
yeah,
90s
but the
understands the
idea
plight.
of sweat equity, I had to decide with hard-earned money to purchase music. And because of that, what would inevitably happen with a lot of people is you just wouldn't have the money to get everything. So you had to really pick and choose what music you wanted to buy. And when you made that choice, even if you didn't really like the album, you kind of just listened to it over and over anyway,
Mhm,
because you already spent money on it. And you're like,
mhm.
well, I don't want the money to go to waste. I'm not going to listen to something once and then never listen to it again, which is what you can do now on Spotify. You can be like, oh, I tried a song, I didn't like it, out of sight, out of mind. You never listen to it again. But back then it was
Mhm.
like, well, I bought this album and I didn't really vibe with it, but I spent $12.99. So I'm going to listen to it again and again and again. And eventually you'd fall in love with stuff because I guess you
That
beat yourself into submission.
exactly.
But that's kind of how it worked. And that's kind of where this all spawned from, is each of our everyone in my friend group, we all had different albums and we all wanted to share our music with people. And mixtapes were apropos. How dare we use cassette tapes? Let's make
Yeah.
CDs. And one
Mhm.
of our friends had this magical little technology, this program called iTunes. And we would take our CDs over to his house, because not only did he have iTunes, he had a rewritable CD burner disk
Mhm.
drive.
Yeah.
So we would load all of our CDs into his iTunes, and then we would meticulously pick out what songs we wanted to burn onto a CD, with the limitations of a CD at the time, which was 80 minutes of music. And that roughly got you anywhere between, if you really jam packed it, 16 to like 26 tracks of music.
If
And
you're
so
if you're savvy, yeah, you
yeah,
can you
if
could
you can get a lot of music on there. And how it worked is essentially each person in our friend group would decide, I want to feature X artist. Someone comes to the table, I have Breaking Benjamin's debut album Saturate. Well, I have Evanescence's debut album, their self-titled debut. Okay, cool. I have Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory. All right, well, I have Mudvayne's LD50. Cool. Those are going to be our four artists, and we will make a mix that just features those four artists and specifically music from those four albums that we had. And we would sequence them such that it would be a rotating spool of those in the exact same order. You'd hear a Breaking Benjamin song, you'd hear an Evanescence song, you'd hear a Linkin Park song, you'd hear a Mudvayne song. Breaking Benjamin, Evanescence, Linkin Park, Mudvayne. And we'd keep rotating until we filled up the whole burn, the full 80 minutes. And it was just our way of, again, sharing music. And so that way, when we'd make several copies of these and we'd trade them off with each other on the bus or whatever, and we'd listen to them back on these ancient things called CD Walkman, and we'd listen to them on the bus ride or when you're out there mowing the lawn, and they would skip all the time and they'd scratch
Mhm.
up your disc, but you did it
Mhm.
anyway. And that way you could find out, oh, I liked these 4 or 5 songs, because that's about how many rotations you could get, with that many bands. Sometimes we do 3 bands, sometimes we do 5 bands or whatever. But you'd be like, oh, okay, well, I don't have Mudvayne's LD50, and I liked these 4 or 5 songs from it on this mix. Maybe next time I get my next paycheck and I want to invest sweat equity into buying
Mhm.
a CD, I already know I like this enough that I want to give it a try. And boom, you go out and buy that. So that's really where it all started. A great way to share music, great way to discover new artists and bands, especially back then when you didn't have algorithms recommending music to you. You relied on word of mouth or just simply what you heard on the radio. If
Mhm.
you happened to catch a song that tickled your fancy, or crazy, MTV used to play music videos, and
I
you could watch MTV like after dark or like late hours, especially on MTV2. They used to have another
MTV
channel,
MTV2.
was for when they were like, oh, MTV is starting to not play music anymore, and we're just doing more and more stupid reality shows, but people still like music. So we'll just make MTV2 that does music like the original one did. And that's where you're like, oh, this band System of a Down is playing this really cool song, and now I'm going to try out their music. And that's all it was. So, and usually what we tried to do over time is we we did Inevitability of Jawsomeness, then we did a volume 2, a volume 3, and etc. And as we went on, we started to get more intricate with it, really starting to think about the order placement of tracks, overarching themes, making sure the bands had very similar sounds. Like I didn't want Dream Theater on the same Inevitability of Jawsomeness as Sum 41.
Mm.
Like I love Dream Theater and I love Sum 41,
They
but
don't
they're
belong
very
next to each
different.
other.
They're
Yeah.
very different vibes. And you want something that's cohesive. You would even sometimes, what we would do is integrate individual like one-off songs. Like I know we did a 2000s hip hop version that had like, I think the Eminem Show album had just come out, the one with Without Me. That was like, I think that's still to this day his greatest selling
Well,
album ever. I think that
I would venture a guess. Yeah,
I
that's
think it went like
probably it.
9 or 11 times platinum, like just an insane number of sales. And so we featured that and a couple other artists of the era. And we didn't want to put Busta Rhymes on there as a featured artist, but
Mm.
we loved Break Your Neck because we
Oh,
thought that song was hilarious. And so we wanted to get Busta Rhyme in there because we love Break Your Neck. And that song was hilarious to us, but still enjoyable and also culturally relevant at the time. It's actually a pretty big song, but we didn't care for his full albums enough to like make him a featured artist. So what, every once in a while we do like a one-off, like, okay, we're doing a hip-hop mix, here's Eminem and a couple other big names, but then boom, we'd throw in Busta Rhymes. So that's pretty much the Inevitability of Jaw in its entirety. I think throughout freshman year through to my senior year of high school, my friends and I made somewhere between 12 and 15 volumes of
mm.
this, virtually every quarter of a year, every like 3 or 4 months or so. Enough new music would come out of bands that we were following or interested in, or we would be discovering new artists because new people came out and new stuff we'd hear on the radio, etc. And we probably, like I said, made a dozen plus of these.
Mm.
And we continued into our freshman year of college into 2004, but I think we only made one or two more. And I kind of forgot them. I just, the natural course of aging, your memory doesn't stick around that well. And
Oh, novel concept. Yep.
I know. And so just over time, just getting distracted by life, I kind of forgot that we even did these. And just one day randomly, it popped into my head because I was like, I want to make a new playlist, some music that I want to enjoy of some recent releases. And then I was like, that feels familiar. Why do I want to do that? And then it triggered all of this. It was like I pulled the cork out the bottle and just a flood of memories came back to me. I actually reached out to my friend who had that mythical iTunes account and I asked him, I was like, do you still have that computer? Is that tower desktop still around? Can we pull the hard drive out? Like I would give almost anything to
Mm.
just see what those track lists were.
Yeah.
Because I would recreate them as playlists in a heartbeat and listen to them now for the nostalgia of it. I'd be like, oh my God, taking me right back to riding the bus in high school.
You,
That
you're
it'd be
you
crazy.
you're just hitting all of these nostalgic beats because I'm
Yeah.
very like very similar vibes in that sense that the whole process, if you didn't have means to download music at the time illegally,
Mm.
or you didn't have just a bunch of MP3s at your disposal,
Yep.
the ways that you get music is that you just rip the CD and you just put it on, like take a program like iTunes or something like that, turn all of those songs and then you create your playlist that way. Whether
Mhm.
you're rating your parents' CD collection, you're going to the library, you're buying your own, or you're just borrowing from friends. And the Discman thing, like on the school bus, that was the thing. Everybody at one time, they had their headphones on, corded headphone, mind you,
Yep.
hoping that their CD doesn't skip and hoping that their CD has long
Shut.
enough
Yeah.
to, yeah. What kind of, like, do you remember what type of Discman that you had?
I wish I could remember the brand. I just remember it was yellow and black and it had shock absorbing. That was
Oh,
like a new thing.
the
I
shock
rem
absorption. Yeah, I remember when
I
that came
remember
out.
essentially I just earned enough money, and I asked my mom. I think this was my sophomore year, and I was a late in the school year birthday. I was a
Mm.
May baby, so when everyone else in sophomore year started getting their driver's license and stuff, I still had my permit. So I had to ask my mom take me to Best Buy, and I was going to go buy my own Walkman because my dad was tired of me stealing his. And because I was like, I think like my parents realized, like, no, he does need one of these all the time. Like he's going to listen to music every day on the bus. He listens to it while just being around the house. He listens to it when I ride my bike. I, again, didn't have a car yet, so I rode my bike to work. I worked at a elderly retirement home. I worked in the kitchen, prepping meals and serving food, and
Interesting.
bringing food to their tables, and then after the meals were done, taking them back, cleaning the dishes, yada yada. And by car, it was probably 5 minutes from
Hmm.
my parents' house, 7 minutes maybe. But by bike, that was like a half hour.
Hmm.
So I would listen to, and again, it would skip all. It was so annoying, but like that was just the time. So you just got used to it. Like, oh yeah, it's going to skip, especially as I go over this bumpy area of, riding my bike to work. And so it finally got to the point, dad wanted his Walkman back. I needed to buy my own. And I remember it was one of my earliest financial life lessons. It was like there was a $20 Walkman, or like 30 or something like that, but it was really cheap and crappy.
Yep.
I was like, I can save money. I could get that plus like
A
maybe two or
CD.
three more CDs. And then my mom was like, yeah, but see this one over here? That's more expensive and it's nicer, and it has anti-skip technology, and it has shock absorbing. So like it won't scratch up your disc as much. And when you're riding your bike or like mowing the lawn outside and you're listening to music, it's not going to skip. It's not going to scratch. It has extended battery life, like all of it. And I was like, oh, okay, better to pay more up front and have it last a long time than having it break in 4 to 6 months and have to buy another one. And so
Good
that was,
lesson. Yep.
yep, it's a good lesson. Mom was right. And you take that one to the bank, kids. Please do that
Hmm.
with all your financial purchases. If you can afford it, get the nicer quality thing up front because it will be better for you. But yeah, I again don't remember the brand, but it said it drained batteries slower. It had anti-skip technology. It was scratch resistant lasers, and it had a shock absorber in it. That was like the new thing to help it as much as possible. And yeah, and that's it. So that's the inevitability of Jawsomeness. That's how it came to be. That's how many we made throughout the years, and how we learned and discovered new music, and then how I kind of forgot about it. And that brings us to today, which is I just wanted to bring it back after all these memories flooded back to me again. When they did, I reached out to my friend. I was like, "Do you have that hard drive? Do you have those playlists?" Unfortunately, we couldn't find them, but I will continue to pester him. I'm hoping one day they'll accumulate and bloom somewhere, and we'll just find
Right.
them. But I probably not. But so I went ahead and made a new playlist called "The Inevitability of Jawsomeness: Resurrection,"
Mm.
because I'm bringing it back. And am I going to make a new playlist every 2 to 4 months like I made in high school? No. One, because I'm lazy, and I can't stress how much I'm lazy. And in my old age, I like to be as lazy as I can.
Fair.
And two, honestly, I'm just not that I'm not into music, because I still am. I love music, but I'm not into going out and discovering new music like I once was.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
in high school and in college, it was like, oh my God, let's go to, I was going to concerts every month. 2 months tops, I would go without a concert. And I was one of those people that made sure I was a heathen. I would get there for the openers that no one knew. Why? Because it was a way to discover new music. And I
Mhm.
wanted to learn about new artists and bands. And, oh, do I like this sound? I'll go look them up afterwards and try to buy their CD or whatever. And nowadays I'm kind of content. I have a plethora of artists I like from like the 60s through today. And if I hear something new on the radio that really tickles my fancy, I'll start listening to it. But for the most part, I'm not like seeking out new music. So I
Clamoring
might,
for no new music.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I might make one or two of these a year, if that. But this was the first one, and I made this one earlier. I don't know, Mike. We've been talking about doing this recording for a while. When
We
did? I
The
do this. I think
last,
this was earlier at either at the beginning of this year or maybe even late last year. I can't
yeah,
remember.
it's possible. Yeah.
So and I have been already toying around with doing another volume of this because there's been a couple bands that have come out with albums that I would like to feature, and I'm sure I will. And when that time comes, I'll reach back out to you and we can do another episode
Yep.
on the next volume.
Yep. Absolutely. So I've got the playlist pulled up
Hmm.
here, and you crammed in 23 tracks in here. Very diligent of you to be
I
able to do that.
I
So
thank you. I think I did a pretty good job, especially 23 tracks at an hour and 18 minutes, like
exactly. Yep.
right under
So
the wire.
I'm curious though, kind of walk me through what were the things that were most important to you in terms of creating the resurrection version of the inevitability of Jawsomeness. So,
Sure.
like, what artists were you looking for? What was your mindset? Because it was just you making this versus having friendly input. So,
Yep.
walk me through the
Yeah.
process.
So it's just me this time. So is I'm definitely it's definitely more biased. This is all music that I already know and enjoy, but it was also in the same vein I kind of thought of this playlist as, okay, I'll make something for me that I can share with others to be like, hey, this is what I'm digging. You can give it a try. See if you find something new that you like, Not saying that people have to or really need to get into this, but I've shared it with some friends and I've gotten pretty positive feedback. So that's
Nice.
comforting and it makes me feel good. The bands I featured in this one are Bad Omens, Bring Me the Horizon, Electric Callboy, and Linkin Park. Now, these aren't new bands,
No, but
especially Bring Me the Horizon, Electric Callboy, and Linkin Park. These bands have been around for a long time. Even Bad Omens has been around for a minute now at this point. So this wasn't like newly discovered artists, but at the time I made this, which again I think was either end of last year 2024 or early 2025, they had all recently ish had new albums, new
mm,
material within the past like year prior to me making this. And so that's kind of what I based this on. The Bad Omens music all comes from, and I'm going to get it wrong, I'm sure, the Death of Peace and Mind album. The Bring Me the Horizon music all comes from Post Human Next Gen, and it's all spelled funky and weird. And then the Electric Callboy one, this one is a little bit different. So, Electric Callboy, brief history on them. They used to actually have a different name that has what is now considered a slur
mm.
for a certain type of indigenous people. And they
And
changed their name because they were no longer comfortable using that. Again, it changed from being an acceptable term to a not acceptable term in the time that the band has been around. But not only did they change their name, at the same time they changed their lead singer, and they changed wildly their style of music. They used to be more, I would say, thrash metal with like hints of emo and screamo, more like your Bullet for My Valentine's kind of stuff, but a little bit even more emo than that, like late 2000s kind of sound. But they're a German band, so it
mm,
has European technical influences as well, a lot of electronica interwoven. But when they changed their name and they got a new lead singer, they kind of turned into a more, I have no other way to describe it than dance metal.
okay.
It's very poppy, synthy, danceable music,
Mhm.
but it is metal. It is hard, and there's screaming, and I love it. It makes me very happy, and it's also very comical and it's intentional. They have a huge comedy element to their music, especially if you watch their music videos. All
Mm.
their music videos are a joke. They always come out in ridiculous costumes and wigs and do stupid synchronized dances, and they're hilarious. So because of that, Electric Callboy on this mix has stuff from a lot of different singles as well as an album of theirs called Techno. But that's because they've kind of reinvented themselves. So I kind of picked and chose different singles throughout their reinvention over the past couple years that kind of defined their new sound. And then Linkin Park specifically, I chose their new album From Zero because if you know anything about Linkin Park and the tragic passing of Chester Bennington, They have been dormant and not existent as a band for, they were not for 7 years. They
Hmm.
didn't exist. And then they reemerged with Emily Armstrong as a replacement for Chester Bennington and giving them an entirely different sound because now they have a female vocalist. And that's also one of the sub themes of this mix that I made is there's a lot of female vocalists. One, in Linkin Park, every single one of these tracks has a female vocalist because now Linkin Park has Emily. But also, I do have a couple of those one-off songs in here, and I have like a song from Lacuna Coil, who has a female vocalist, or I have a song from Sixth Sense, which is an unsigned, unknown, largely unknown, I should say, new metal band who has a female vocalist. And I even have another song by Electric Callboy, actually two songs by Electric Callboy that feature female vocalists. And one song they feature the Japanese metal band Baby Metal, and then another song features the band Conquer Divide. So there's a lot of female metal vocalists in this, which I thought was fun. There's a lot of new metal in this, and electronica metal in this. That's kind of the main themes. There's a couple other things that are a little bit outside those, but still just overall, I think it works for the vibe of this mix. And it was all stuff I was really listening to when I made this mix roughly 8 to 12 months ago. And I still listen to this playlist quite often and I really enjoy it.
Nice. I was going to ask you about that because looking at the list, you go in a specific order. You go the
Yep.
Bad Omens, Bring Me the Horizon, Electric Callboy, Linkin Park. And then you have three of these one-off songs.
Yep.
Do you so sometimes is it more advantageous to add in a one-off song in order for there to be four equal, or the rotation would give you at least an equal number of songs per artist? Or what happens in the event that you pick four artists, you get to track 18 and you're like, oh, we've run out of space. What do you do in situations like that?
Yeah. And that's a good question, because that has definitely happened throughout the years, and it even
Mhm.
happened with this one. And that's why the one-offs are there. That's something we discovered, I think, on volume 2 when we were doing this back in 2001, is when we discovered it was necessary to have one-offs, because otherwise, what would inevitably happen because of the time constraints of what's programmable on a rewritable CD, you couldn't have an even distribution of songs. And we didn't want to feature one band more than the other. That
Mhm.
defeats the purpose of trying to share music and letting people explore. And that goes twofold. It's not just I want to share music for Mike, and Mike is shortchanged because now he can only hear 3 Linkin Park songs, but he heard 4 Element songs, 4 Bring Me the Horizon songs, and 4 Electric Callboy songs. It's also not fair to me as the one bringing Linkin Park to the table, saying like, hey, I really like this, I want you guys to experience more of this, and I want them to be equally represented on the CD, so that when I'm listening to it, I'm hearing 4
Mhm.
songs from the band I recommended.
Yeah.
So it was a detriment to the person recommending the music. It was a detriment to all of our friends who didn't get to hear more new music. So that's why we started adding the one-offs, and that's exactly what happened here. So in this playlist, I come up with 5 equal sets. Each of those 4 bands gets 5 tracks. So that's 20 of the 23 tracks right
That's
there.
pretty good. That's
And
pretty good.
and then I used 3 additional tracks
Mhm.
to fill the void, because again, if we're just doing the math, then that's 23 tracks. If I had not done individual tracks from one-offs and tried to force another set of the main 4 bands, one of those bands would have been shortchanged. One of them would have had a song left off because we did not have space on the album.
Mhm.
Because it says Spotify doesn't give the second count. It says like an hour and 18 minutes. But if I remember correctly, it's like an hour and 18 minutes and
And change. Yeah.
47 seconds. Like
You
not
can,
enough time to get another song in. Like it just wasn't possible. And so that's when it's like, okay, well, we're not going to do 6 rotations of the 4 band list. We're going to do 5 rotations of the 4 band list. And I now need anywhere between 2 and 4, depending on the alternative bands I choose from and how long their songs are. I need extra bands in here to fill the gaps. And that's where I came up with Sixth Sense, Lacuna Coil, and Falling in Reverse are the 3 bands that fill the gaps to make it up to a full album.
You hear that, Washington? Compromise and working together is possible. So
Craziness.
weird, I know. The order, so your core four in this,
Yes.
the order that they're in, I did notice that they're in alphabetical order, but is there another reason why you picked those
There,
four in
the
that order?
alphabetical order was actually just entirely coincidental.
So happy accident. Okay.
Yeah, that was not something I was going for in the slightest. So I have some rules, and I've talked about them when on this show with you in the past, and they pretty much boil down to this: track one should be a hard-hitting, good opener that sets the vibe and tempo. That even if you just heard one track, you understand what the rest of the album is roughly going to sound like. Track three should be your headlining song of the album, the one that, like, by the time you're finished with the third track, you know whether or not you want to listen to the rest of the album because you've gotten a good sense of it, and that's the one that you're banking on people going back to listen to over and over and over. That's the power slot in the lineup, so to speak. And then I really care about the last track of the album. I don't want the last track to be a fucking head ripping banger, that's gonna make people mosh, and then the album just cuts to silence. Like, that's weird. Yeah, I wanted something that's, I wouldn't necessarily say slow, but that's usually inevitably what happens. But it's a tempo cool down
Mhm.
where it's more usually melodic in nature. It's more emotional. It's a come down instead of a push up. It's something that you can, after you've just experienced this, 1 hour, and at that point, by the time you get to the last track, 15-minute ride of like high intensity metalcore, progressive metal, electronica metal, hard rock, that you're like, okay, I need something to slow down the heart rate.
Mhm.
So those are the three kind of tracks I care about the most. And with that said, then I was picking and choosing which songs I wanted to feature. And I knew I wanted to do Good Things Go by Linkin Park. That was one of the tracks I wanted off their newest album. And that's easily the best come down song of any of the tracks I picked on this playlist. It is the most melodic, it is the slowest tempo, it is the most, hey, we're just kind of going to get ethereal about it and contemplative and let you simmer in your emotions and think about things. And I was like, okay, well, then that has to be the final track. So if that's the final track, that means I've already slotted Linkin Park in to the fourth artist in my 4 band rotation. So
Mhm.
that I knew, all right, so Linkin Park's number 4, done. And then I wanted a banger of an opening. And I don't really remember exactly my justification. It's probably because Bad Omens on The Death of Peace and Mind album, Concrete Jungle actually is also the opener of that
Mm.
album.
Okay.
This is the first track there, and it works really well as an opening track because it builds, and like it starts out, I wouldn't say quiet, but more somber,
Mhm.
and it grows into something apocalyptic, just devastating in its tenor and the tone that it's going for, and it really gives you a sense of longing for more, and it just works really well as an opening track to set the tone and pace of how the rest of the album is going to sound and feel, and get you jacked up and amped to hear more. So I was like, okay, boom, Concrete Jungle then is my opener. Okay, now I've locked Bad Omens in at the first band in my 4 band rotation. And I knew even before I picked all 4 bands, so even before I made those decisions that I just described, I knew Electric Callboy was going to be the band that I was going to feature the hardest,
Mm.
because again, they're this weird German band that a lot of people don't even know exists, and I wanted more people to be aware of them. So I knew that I wanted them in the 3-hole slot for the third track, and I wanted to do the song Ratatata that features baby metal. And so because I think that song is so fun. It is such a bop and it's so catchy. And that's the one where I was like, okay, that's really what's going to set the tone for the album as a whole, whether people are going to want to listen to the entire playlist. And again, so now I've confirmed in the 3 spot, it's going to be Electric Callboy. So if Electric Callboy was in the 3, I locked Linkin Park into the 4. I locked Bad Omens into 1. By default, then Bring Me the Horizon had to be number 2. There wasn't really a choice. It was the only band left and the only spot left. So that's kind of where I go, is just, okay, so what's a good song for the 3rd track, a good song for the 4th track, or a final track, and a good song for the opening track. And based on that, that's where I picked the band for the rotation order. So it ended up being Bad Omens, Bring Me the Horizon, Electric Callboy, and Linkin Park in that order. The fact that it was alphabetical was entirely coincidental.
Got it. Okay. Let's start going through some of these tracks. So
Yep.
let's group these up by single or by the 4 rotation bands. We'll go through that and then the one-offs, just kind of talk about that. So your first group in this, you've got Concrete Jungle for Bad Omens, Kool-Aid by Bring Me the Horizon, Ratatat Tat
Ratatata.
Ratatata, sorry, by Electric Callboy and Baby Metal, and then you've got Casualty by Linkin Park. So you mentioned a little bit about Concrete Jungle. That was the opener of their album. And it felt right to slot it into your opener here. Ratatata was the one that you wanted in the 3 spot.
Yep.
What about the other 2?
The other 2, again, once I pick the bands I want and I pick the order that I want them, then I just go, I wish there was a more fancy way to say, like, I'm really deep into thought about this, but essentially, like, I just, it's like, oh, I knew I wanted Bad Omens. I was going to go off of the Death of Peace and Mind album. Then I just go to the album and I pick the 5 songs I like, like, here's the 5 songs I want to feature. And then it was really just playing with what sounds good. Like, if I put Concrete Jungle at 1, and Bring Me the Horizon, I knew I wanted Kool-Aid, Lost, etc. We'll get to the others, but it was just shuffling the order. Okay, so after Concrete Jungle ends, let's try Kool-Aid here. Let's try Lost. Let's try Dark Side. Essentially, what sounds the best coming off of Concrete Jungle and going into a Bring Me the Horizon song. And that's kind of what it came down to. It's just like the transition, what sounded good. The only other thing I would say I really took into account was headlining singles. And what I mean by that is the big single for this album in particular by Bring Me the Horizon is the song called Lost. And I essentially didn't want a big single of any one band in the same 4-song group as another band's big single. So I already had Ratatata for Electric Callboy and Baby Metal as the big single from the first 4 opening tracks. Cool, done. That means I couldn't do it for the others. And I even kind of slightly broke this rule, if I'm being honest, because in the next set, we'll get to it, I have 2 major lead singles. But again, what matters more than the lead single thing is just what sounds good, transitioning one song from the other. So I was trying to separate like the big singles that people would recognize and get excited about, because that also gives people an additional incentive to keep listening through. Is, oh, I'm waiting for that big single that I already know. Where could I find that, kind of thing? And this works as a way to kind of accomplish that, is to try to separate the singles. But in this case, again, Kool-Aid just sounded good coming off of Concrete Jungle, and therefore also going into Ratatata. And Casualty, I really liked Casualty here. I want earlier in the album because it starts very screamy, and Emily Armstrong comes out very heavy for this song with Linkin Park, and I didn't want that heavy of a song later in the album. That it's an energy, let's get going kind of song. And I was like, okay, then if that's the case, I want that as early as possible. So I just put in the opening 4-song set for that reason.
I mean, you talk as if, like, you didn't put, like you said before, it's like I wish that there was a more methodical way to do this, but I disagree with you. I think you were very methodical when you put together this list because I'm sure that this is a lot of trial and error to try to figure out which ones go in as good of a spot as you can make it. And it's hard. You can't,
Yeah.
it just takes some finessing to do that. So I think just give yourself a little bit of slack on that. It's all good. And after these first four songs, you have your first one off, which is Feed Them to the Wolves by Sick Sense and Vicky.
Sark
I'm
Pasarkis.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna tag
Uh,
you in for that. All right, cool. So
long story short, I don't even know why Spotify lists her separately. She's a full member of Six Sense at this point. In fact, Six Sense, the lead singer of Six Sense, and Vicky are married in real life. And Vicky was doing her own solo stuff, and then she just full time joined Six Sense. So it's actually a husband and wife dual lead of vocals. They both do harsh vocals and screaming, and they're a new metal band. And traditionally, the husband, I forget his name, and I'm too lazy to look it up, but the guy, he does more of like the rapping,
mm,
as new metal is oft to do, and
mhm.
she does more melodic singing during the choruses. So yeah, I don't know why Spotify lists this song as having two different artists on it, but it's just Six Sense. The band is called Six Sense, and yeah, this is called Feed Them to the Wolves. The main reason I like this song, if I'm going to be honest, is if you take a listen to this, listen to the bridge. There is an incredible bass line, as the bass player is not even plucking the strings anymore because he's playing 64th notes so fast that he's just constantly plucking up and down the neck of the guitar because it's
Mm.
the only way he can play it as fast as the notes are coming. And that sounds like it's very like hardcore, fast, heavy. It's not. It's actually very jazz.
Mhm.
Which sounds crazy saying, "Hey, here's a new metal song. Let's do a jazz bass line." But I promise you, it works. It works really well. It's only during the bridge section it cuts out the harder guitar and bass tones. It drops the drum kit out entirely, and it
Mhm.
just goes to this like somber jazz influenced melodic rhythmic kind of floaty vibe feel, and Vicky sings over it while he's playing this really cool bass line. And that's the main reason I wanted that song in there, is because
Mhm.
that bass part is so awesome to listen to. So yeah, Feed Them to the Wolves. I thought that was a great way to show people a band that I don't think gets enough respect. They're not even signed, by the way. Last I saw, they are still unsigned. They don't have a major label. They only release singles individually on Spotify. I think they eventually came out with an EP, but it's something that they self-published themselves. And I don't know if they're ever going to make it at this point because they've been around for years and they've still not been signed. And there's already been a couple people who have left the band because they're tired of waiting, including the bassist who was so great. He's not even with the band anymore. So it's kind of a shame. But if anything, this song acts as a cool relic, an artifact to kind of to the guys who try, and
Mhm.
the people who put themselves out there and express themselves through music and are just either not seen or heard or appreciated for X, Y, or Z reason. So it's kind of fun to have that one track on there for them.
If you mentioned this before, I apologize, but I wanted to ask, is there a reason, because for your three one-off ones, is there a reason why you let off with Sixth Sense?
There's not a particular reason other than I thought it sounded good. Again,
Mhm.
that when I make my lists, I will literally rearrange the tracks so often, just and I'll just play the last 10 seconds of a song flowing into the first 20 seconds of the next song. And I will do that with every track, and I'll just keep cycling through until I find the ones that I think sound well together, sound like they are in sync with one another, and that it's not jarring. There's nothing more I hate than like, one song ends with like very smooth melodic singing, and then the next track opens with like thrash metal and the guy screaming before a quarter note has even been played. Not that I don't mind that. I actually love that kind of music, but I don't like that as a direct follow up to like somber piano. Like it
Mm,
just it doesn't work for me. So Feed Them to the Wolves is at the place it's at just because it sounded good coming off of Linkin Park's Casualty. And that's it. That's the only reason.
nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
It's all good. Like the thoughtfulness that you put into these lists like floors me each time. So I'm just very
Well, thank
curious
you.
about that. So your second set for your core four artist, you've got The Death of Peace and Mind, which is the album title track for Bad Omens,
Yep.
Lost by Bring Me the Horizon, Fuckboy
Fuck boy. Yep.
by Electric Callboy and featuring Conquer Divide and Heavy is the Crown by Linkin Park.
Yes. This is the one part where the two lead album singles unfortunately collide. I wish I could have gotten Lost and Death of Peace and Mind not in the same quartet of
Hmm.
tracks. However, I thought they sounded really good together at this point in the album at the 6 and 7 slot. I also felt it just made a lot of great momentum for the album as a whole because you could even get the sense after Casualty and Feed Them to the Wolves after hearing Ratatata that you're like, okay, not that I'm still not enjoying it. It's still really good, but like, where's the next big, adrenaline shot to the arm? And this is that. Death of Peace and Mind and Lost back to back. I think if you're listening to contemporary rock radio stations, you have heard these tracks and they
Hmm.
have been played a lot over the last year and a half to 2 years, and they are very popular for a reason.
Hmm.
They're a lot of fun. Death of Peace of Mind is a more, I would say, more contemporary progressive metal take on electronica, and Lost is Bring Me the Horizons doing a throwback tribute to pop punk of the 2000s era. So
Hmm.
they're very different vibes in terms of what type of song they are, but they both hit really hard in terms of just getting you amped up, wanting to, having you want to sing along and being excited to just continue listening to music. So that's why those are there. Death of Peace and Mind and Lost. Fuckboy, I thought had to go. No matter where I put Lost in the album, I had to put Fuckboy right with it because
Hmm.
Fuckboy is also an homage to mid to late 2000s pop punk, just like Lost is. In fact, again, I spoke of how Electric Callboy is very comical with their music videos in particular. If you go
Hmm.
and look up the music video to Fuckboy, it is intentionally filmed as if it was a music video from 2007. You would swear to God, like people taking Polaroid pictures of themselves and like horror and intentionally horrible editing decisions and all the pop punk clothing scene attire you could possibly imagine, like girls in like fishnet leggings and short skirts,
Hmm.
or like low rise jeans, guys and long sleeve shirts with a short sleeve shirt on top of them and chains on their wallets on their pants and
Oh
and
boy. Yeah.
and all of the dyed hair and streaked dyed hair you could possibly imagine. And it looks like it genuinely looks like, oh, it's like, oh, this is a music video for Avril Lavigne, or this is a music video for Sum 41. Like
Hmm.
that's just what it looks like. And it's very intentional and very hilarious. And because of that, the sound, the tone of the song is very much like that. So Lost and Fuckboy, genuinely, even though they're two completely different bands, sound like they could be on the same album. That's how stylistically they are in sync with one another. So that's why Fuckboy follows Lost. That was very intentional. And then Heavy as the Crown is the next one from Linkin Park, because after doing two pop punk songs back to back, I wanted to ramp it back up again with more aggressive contemporary hard rock, because especially because I knew I was going into an alternative, one of the one-off bands after this, and based on the two songs I had left, I knew they were much harder, no matter which one I chose, either the Lacuna Coil song or the Falling in Reverse song, much harder, significantly harder than the Lost and Fuckboy duo. So I
Hmm.
needed to ramp us back up to so that the listener could be in the mindset to hear one of those songs again. And I thought Heavy as a Crown was a great transition song because it wasn't nearly as hard as Lacuna Coil, but it was certainly harder than like the Electric Callboy song before it.
So on a similar plane, at least, to where it would make sense for the
Hmm.
transition from one to the other. So th-
Absolutely.
that's where you have, as you mentioned before, your one-off Lacuna Coil, the Siege in here.
This is off of Lacuna Coil's latest album that just came out earlier this year. Okay, so this did come out this year. So I made this playlist this year definitively. When this year, don't remember, but it sometime it wouldn't have been long after this album came out. But it's Sleepless Empire is Lacuna Coil's newest album. Lacuna Coil is, depending on who you talk to, they're either a metal band or a thrash metal band or a metalcore band. I'm not going to get into the genre nitpickiness, but they're great. I love them. They're known for having a female vocalist who does melodic singing on top of screaming singing that is usually done by a male vocalist within the group. Similar-ish to something like Nightwish, but less gothic, more contemporary. And I just really love this song, The Siege. This actually, I believe, is the opening track off of this album, the Lacuna Coil's album. But I didn't, at the time that I made this, I didn't have enough songs off that new album of Lacuna Coils that I could justify having them as one of the four bands. But as like, I don't know if I have 5 songs I really want to highlight right now, but I knew for sure I wanted The Siege on here because I fell in love with that song instantly. I think it's awesome.
Has Lacuna Coil been in any of your Jawsomeness playlist or your
Yes,
Lynch?
there are maybe. I feel like we did something with their album called Karma Code, but that album came out in 2006. And
Mm,
I thought we were done doing these by like 2005 or maybe 2006 was the last one. I could have swore I did something with Karma Code because I remember putting the song Our Truth on a mix for sure. Or it
mm.
might have just been another one-off song at that point, but I thought I had more from Karma Code. I don't remember entirely. I'm
That
old. You're asking me
asking you to
a nearly 20-year-old question, Mike.
I apologize for that. So then I will retract the next question I was about to ask about whether or not any of these artists are repeats from any of your
Well,
Joss.
I do know that one, and that's frankly that's because the other bands didn't exist. Bad Omens didn't exist yet. Electric Callboy didn't exist yet, and I think Bring Me the Horizon had just done their debut album in England, but they weren't like it known a known entity here in the States yet. So Linkin
Lincoln
Park was the
Park,
only one
though.
that even
Yeah.
existed at the time. And absolutely, we did. Linkin Park is a multiple time player on this series. We did Hybrid Theory, we did Meteora for sure, and we skipped Minutes to Midnight, and I think we did 1,000 Suns as well. I can't remember again. That might have been right around the time we stopped doing these. And then also here I did their newest album, From Zero. So they've been at least been featured 3 times, Hybrid Theory, Meteora, and From Zero, but maybe up to 4 times if we did 1,000 Suns as well.
That answers a question. Another question. The last question I had for you for at least this grouping is, have you ever repeated an artist? And it looks
Yes.
like the answer is enthusiastically, at least for Linkin
Yes.
Park. Yes.
I know we've done Linkin Park multiple times. I know we did System of a Down multiple times between their debut album,
Mhm.
their self-titled, and Toxicity and Steal This album. I believe we also did Finch multiple times because
Mm.
Finch is a personal favorite band of mine as I
Mm.
wear my Finch shirt right now. I know we did their album What It Is to Burn as well as their second album Say Hello to Sunshine. And I wouldn't be shocked if there were more that we also did multiple times, but again, I just off the top of my head can't remember.
Gotcha. All right. Let's go into your next group. So your Bad Omen song is ID
Dollar sign.
dollar sign.
I don't want the money is what it stands for.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now I feel a little bit like an idiot for not figuring that out, but whatever.
No,
Um,
there's no way you would have figured that out. In fact, the context of the song is even the reverse of that. He absolutely wants the money.
Very nice. So you've got Utopia, and U is spelled YOU instead of just the traditional U for Bring Me the Horizon, Elevator Operator by Electric Callboy, and Two Faced by Linkin Park.
Yes. This is where I just started getting a little goofy with it. And this is sneakily I like to add one of these somewhere in these playlists albums where there's a set that's actually my favorite songs. So
Mm.
like Rat-a-Tata might be the biggest Electric Callboy song that people know, and Death of Peace of Mind might be the big single that people know. But this is my quartet of songs. This is
Okay.
Heath's picks. I Don't Want the Money is my favorite song off of that album.
Mm.
Utopia is my favorite song off of that album. Elevator Operator is technically not on their techno album. It's only been released as a single. They're working on their new album, and I'm assuming Elevator Operator will absolutely be on that album whenever it happens. It's just not been released yet. But I absolutely love Elevator Operator. I think it's hilarious, and so it's annoying how catchy that song is. And then Two Faced, I think, is probably easily my favorite song on the new Linkin Park album. Granted, it's pretty much just one step closer. Hybrid Theory, so much so that in the original Hybrid Theory, it's very much known for Chester yelling shut up when I'm talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, Emily yells, stop talking to me, stop
Ah,
talking to me. Like it's the all while Mike Shinoda scratches on his turntables in the background. Like it is, if it wasn't a deliberate homage to One Step Closer, I I don't know what is. Like if Linkin Park came out in an interview and said, "Oh yeah, no, we just wrote that. It's a coincidence that it sounds and is structured a lot like One Step Closer," I'd be like, "You're fucking lying.
you're
There's no way you didn't do this on purpose."
right.
But it is my favorite song on their new album. And it's probably because it speaks to me and my old age and my love for Hybrid Theory. It reminds me of that time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are all my favorite tracks off of these albums that I've selected to highlight from these bands. So this is the Heath set. I call these the non-skippable.
Mm.
Now I normally don't skip around through my mixes anyway. I try to always pick songs I know I'm going to enjoy. That's kind
But
of the
it
intention.
depends on the day,
But
depends
it
how you're
depends on the
feeling.
day, and depends on the mood and yada yada. But these are my non-skippables. When I get to these four, I'm not skipping. I love all four of these tracks.
I love that you have like a this is this is for everyone else. This is for me.
This is for me. Yep.
So that's fantastic. So your 15 track is Watch the World Burn. This is by Falling in Reverse. This is, or yes, Falling in Reverse. It looked like Failing in Reverse for a second,
Yep.
but that wouldn't make sense. Anyways, that this is your last one-off song.
Mm.
And what was it about this one that you wanted to add here and also to just feature Falling in Reverse?
All right. So Falling in Reverse is a bit of a controversial band because of their lead singer. His name is Ronnie Radke. I'm not going to get into it. There's a
Mhm.
lot about him. You can go look it up online if you really care. He's responsible for a lot of the music in terms of the writing and construction of it and the lyrics and all that. In summary, in short, I think Ronnie is incredibly talented musically. He's also kind of a piece of shit. He's just not the best person, and that's fine. I don't really have the biggest problem separating art from the artist, so I can still listen to their music and enjoy it. But unfortunately, to make a movie comparison here, as a fan of film as you are, I'm sure you all appreciate this. He's like Woody Allen to me. I can watch a Woody Allen movie
Oh,
and I can be like, this is technically brilliant. You are an incredible director and a gifted screenwriter. You're also
however,
kind of an insufferable douchebag, and you
yeah.
insert yourself into every movie in kind of disgusting ways.
Mhm.
And because of that, even though I recognize that Woody Allen is an amazing talent, I have a real hard time watching his films because of the subject matter he chooses and how he structures and frames his stories and narratives. And that's before getting into him as a personal person and how I think Woody Allen is just also a piece of shit. Ronnie Radke and Falling in Reverse is that to me. I can listening to Falling in Reverse and be like, oh, this is really good. This is some really incredible stuff. I also don't like how self-indulgent it is and how much Ronnie talks about himself and props himself up to make himself out to be like God's gift to music. And if you don't like me, then you're an idiot and a moron. And he just gives off this air of arrogance to him that I find off-putting. with that said, I think Watch the World Burn is one of the most fascinating studies in music theory that's been made as a song in a long, long time. There is no chorus, there is no verse, there is no bridge, there's no breakdown, there's no structure to the song. It's just propellant music that's continually moving forward. It starts out as a hip hop song, it is a rap song. And he starts rapping, and then he starts aggressively fast rapping, like not nearly as talented lyrically and not for nearly as long as Eminem and Rap God,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to give you that kind of vibe where just like all of a sudden he's just spitting words at a mile a minute and you're like, where is this coming from? Holy shit, it's impressive. And then out of nowhere we go from rapping to fast rapping to pop punk to like alternative punk, and then it goes into metal, and then the end of the song is death metal. So it's just this weird range of music that could progressively gets darker and more perverse and more instrumentally technical as the song progresses. And I just find it to be a fascinating exploration of music theory and instrumentation. And I really wanted to get it on this playlist, on this album, because I find it to be so fun to listen to just from a simple music technical perspective. So yeah, that's why that one's here. It goes really hard by the end of the song, and it makes me very, very happy.
Man, you're not fucking around when you're saying this guy's got a bit of a rap sheet. This
Oh yeah,
that's what
you've been looking it up.
I've been looking it up. I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
oh,
oh yeah,
oh,
yeah.
oh, yeah, that's a lot, but
No, it's a thing. So like I
mhm.
said, it's I wasn't really interested in featuring Falling in Reverse and doing like 4 or 5 of their songs. Honestly, I don't know if I like enough of their songs to do that. They're like Woody Allen. I respect way more than I appreciate. But this one song, and just like Woody Allen, where I'm like, okay, you're insufferable, but Annie Hall is fucking a masterpiece.
Mhm.
That movie's amazing. This is that. Like, okay, Ronnie, you're kind of a big douchebag and you're insufferable. But Watch the World Burn is one of the most technically inventive and creative pieces of music I've ever heard in my life. And
Mm.
I can't not appreciate it and love it. I find it incredibly entertaining.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Your penultimate foursome for this album, you've got Just Pretend by Bad Omens, Dark Side by Bring Me the Horizon, Hypa Hypa by Electric Callboy, and The Emptiness Machine by Linkin Park.
So this is where I get the final album single. We
Mm.
got Ratatata out of the way early for law, almost a different band
Hmm.
for Electric Callboy. We got Death of Peace of Mind and Lost out of the way. This is the Emptiness Machine, which was the lead single off of the From Zero album for Linkin Park that relaunched this band's career. So that's where this is. That's the highlight of this quartet of tracks. Simultaneously, I put Hypa Hypa in here. This was the first song. When I say that Electric Callboy reinvented themselves, this was the track they did it with.
Mm-hmm.
When they came out with a new singer and their new sound, and they came out with a music video to accompany it, this was that track. It was called Hypa Hypa. It is a riot. It is hilarious. It is a bop. And it is, again, I can only describe it as dance metal, but it's dance metal as
Mm.
hell. It makes you want to jump around and dance and sing and then immediately jump in a mosh pit at the same time. It is
Mm.
so cool, and it's incredible how well they balance it. It almost feels like it shouldn't work, but it does. And I thought as a piece of history, it'd be nice to have it on here because ever since this song came out, this is how they have made their sound ever since. This
Mm.
is the origin point for everything they've done over the last 2.5 years to 3 years since this song has come out. And it's made them from a really small, unknown German band to now a worldwide known band. Again, they're not as known in the States as frankly, I think they should be. But if you look outside of the States, like everyone in Europe knows who these guys are. People in Australia know who these guys are. People in Japan know, in Korea, they know who these guys are. And American music markets are not as receptive to this kind of sound. So I'm not shocked that they're not big here, but they should be because they're incredible. Dark Side is just a catchy song, and Just Pretend is actually, I believe, another single off of that album, but it's not like their big single. But it's another good song, and again, they just all flow smoothly into one another. Just Pretend works really well with Dark Side, which surprisingly works well going into Hypa Hypa. And it was all building up to the emptiness machine to get the big Linkin Park single.
Gotcha. All right, we've got our final group here. This is your closer group. You've got Like a Villain by Bad Omens, Strangers with wait, are all of their songs kind of like that where some letters are
Yeah, they're all written funny if you go back and look at them, where there's a weird variance in capitalized letters for no reason. I don't
okay.
know why they decided to do that. I actually find it very annoying
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm the old and it's harder to read. And their next album they came after this with, it wasn't like a full new album. It was like a 1.5 kind of album where like
Okay.
some new stuff, some like reimagining of things, and some of the track names are literally undiscernible. I can't even. It's annoying, but say la vie.
Old man yells at cloud. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's so it's so irrelevant. I like the music. Who cares what it's called?
true. Mind Reader by Electric Callboy. And as you mentioned before, you knew that Good Things Go was going to be your final song on this list.
Yep.
So talk to me about this group.
Like a Villain is actually probably other than Death of Peace of Mind, that's the other biggest song off of that Bad Omens album. So I knew I needed to get that on there somewhere. And I thought it'd be great to leave one big, again, it wasn't as big of a single as Death of Peace of Mind, but it was still a pretty big single for them. And to leave one bigger single for the last quartet of songs, I thought would be nice. So that's why that's there. Again, Strangers just worked really well, flowing musically from one track to another. Mind Reader. So I said earlier that Elevator Operator is probably my favorite Electric Callboy track in this mix. However, this is technically supposed to be based off of the Electric Callboy album Techno, was the one I was pulling from. Coincidentally, only 2 of the 5 songs I used of theirs are from Techno because the rest have been released as singles. But that is the era that I'm evoking, is their album Techno. And Mind Reader is my favorite track on that album. So that was another pick for Heath. That was for me. I wanted to say one last thing at the end where I wouldn't want to skip around because, sometimes you get to the end of a playlist or an album and you're like, okay, these are kind of the throwaway tracks, and I hate that. I hate the idea of, oh, the last 1, 3, 5 tracks, we're just going to skip and go back to the beginning of the album again. So I wanted to put Mind Reader at the end and Like a Villain, because those were 2 great tracks that I knew I would want to listen to, that other people would want to listen to. I think Mind Reader is easily the best song on that album, and I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but I think it's tremendous. And then again, Good Things Go. I knew that that's where I wanted to end it, because that was the best fitting sound to end an album with, coming down from, because if you're listening to, there's a lot of screaming, there's a lot of double bass, a lot of hard guitar riffs. There's some of this stuff is a little bit poppier, some of it is a little bit more dance oriented, some of it is more your traditional alt rock that you would hear on the radio, but the vast majority of this album is metalcore or hard metal. And I needed something that would be a good way to slow the thing down and have the album end in a good place. And I knew that Good Things Go by Linkin Park would be the way to do it. So that's why that is the final track, and that's what rounds out the last quartet of songs.
Were there any ones that you're like, I really wish I could have found a way to get these on, but it's just always the tricky thing about a playlist like this, is that you only get 80 minutes. So
there were, honestly, it kind of worked well that this was my time limit. because I'm almost glad I couldn't fit 24 tracks on here to get 6 rotations of the 4 bands, and that I was forced to do 5 rotations of the 4 bands with 3 extras, because I think I would have been stretching. I think I
Mm.
would have been reaching. I am a big Linkin Park fan. Linkin Park was a big part of my life, especially in the 2000s. I used to work at a summer camp, in fact, and we were not permitted to share our names with the campers. We all had nicknames, as a way to separate ourselves from the campers, especially for like anonymity when coming home, because a lot of these kids came from the same metropolitan city area as where the counselors lived, and they didn't want campers looking up their counselors. So
Mm.
everyone had nicknames. And for my first couple years, my nickname was LP, and it was short for Linkin Park. So to say that Linkin Park has had a profound effect on my life is an understatement. I'm a very big fan. But with that said, I've been kind of disappointed in their new album in Return. Not like in a snobby way of, oh, Emily can't stack up to Chester, or the misogynistic way that you hear some people saying online, oh, why do they have a woman vocalist? That's so stupid. Yeah. Or some people just being like, trying to stir up controversy and being like, oh, didn't you hear she's a Scientologist? Again, I've already gone over this. I can separate the art from the artist. I think it's stupid that she's a Scientologist, but it's her life. She can do what she wants, as long as she's not physically hurting anyone or harming people's lives. Again, I know she's made some weird choices in relation to that, especially when it came to a court trial about something, but like, she wasn't the testimony that changed anything, and that person was arrested and locked away anyway. So like, people are weird. I I don't, so, and I could care less if it's a female singer or not. I just want the music to be good. So it's for none of those reasons. It's for the creativity and output of Linkin Park as a whole. I felt like this new album of theirs was very safe. I
Mm.
felt like they didn't push their boundaries. I think they, and I understand why they did it from a marketing and visibility purpose. They're reviving a band that had been dead for 7 years after the tragic passing of one of the most legendary vocalists in the modern rock scene since the 2000s
Mm.
and the last quarter century, in the 22nd century, or 21st. What are we in? 21st century, 22nd century,
21st. Yeah.
21st century. Like, probably one of the most legendary rock vocalists that existed was Chester Bennington. So like, it was an arduous task. And so I understand they're like, hey, let's make it safe. Let's like make it sound like Meteora. Let's make it sound like Minutes to Midnight, and just make it the standard Linkin Park sound. And while that was great and it's catchy, it's not really what I wanted. Linkin Park is kind of known for reinventing themselves and pushing their boundaries and trying new things, and almost every album of theirs sounds distinct and different in some way. And I was kind of wanting that, especially if you are going to add a female vocalist, like, change it up a bit, make it different. Or if you're gonna come back, then go OG with it and make like a Hybrid Theory album. And there's like 1 or 2 Hybrid Theory songs on here, but it's not a Hybrid Theory album.
Mm.
And that's what I would have preferred. Either go to your roots, go to your origins, do Hybrid Theory, or do something entirely different. And what they did was safely just do like Minutes to Midnight, which I thought was, again, safe. So like, half the album I like, and half of it I don't care for. I skip it when I listen through it. I skip over tracks all the time. And it was because of Linkin Park, and I knew I wanted to include them because they're such an important part of my life, and then coming back and having this new album. So I knew Linkin Park was going to be on this mix, but I also was struggling with songs.
Mm.
Like, already at 5 songs, I was like, that's kind of all I'm comfortable with. If I had had room for a sixth set of songs, I would have been stretching to get a sixth song off the new album that I would want on this mix. So
Gotcha.
the fact that I had the time constraint that showed I couldn't get a sixth set of songs from these 4 bands, and I needed 3 one-off bands, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of a good thing, because I don't have another Linkin Park song I want. And so, and it was a blessing in disguise in that regard. And the same thing even for Bring Me the Horizon, this new album. I had to listen to it multiple times just to get through the whole thing, because it's such a weird dichotomy of tracks, and it very much, in my opinion, tapers off as the album progresses. So between Linkin Park and Bring Me the Horizon, I was like, I don't know if I have 6 tracks that I want to feature. So I'm glad it was just down to 5. And I was more than happy to bring in 3 one-off songs from one-off bands, because that's easy. Just pull one song you like. I can do that all day. That's not hard. That's how most people do their mixes. They're just like, oh, I like this one song from this one band, and I'm going to throw it in a playlist, and I'm done. So
Nice. Final question I have for you is that if this was an actual CD,
yeah.
what would the album cover be?
It's funny that you say that, because we used to draw album color covers for these when
Imagine,
we made
yeah.
them in high school.
Hmm.
We'd get bust out the Sharpies, draw on the disc itself.
Yeah,
Eventually,
that was always a lot of
eventually,
fun to do that.
yeah, eventually our friend who had iTunes and burned these for us, he also got a label maker,
Ooh.
and one of those where you could print on a piece of sticker paper that was
Mm,
already pre-cut, perforated in the shape of a disc. So you would print out art, peel it off, and then actually stick it on top of your disc.
nice.
What we traditionally did, the first one, we just drew the street sharks, because why would you
Naturally.
not?
Yeah.
It was it felt obvious. And then after that, we started picking one band whose album we were featuring, and we would try to mimic that album's cover art in an intentionally shitty way with Sharpies.
Okay.
So like the one we did with Hybrid Theory, that's famous for the soldier who's carrying the flag, but he has like dragonfly wings on his back as he's charging forward. We just very crappily drew the soldier with the flag with dragonfly wings, and that
Hmm.
was like that one. So for this one, I wouldn't pick the Linkin Park album, because their cover art is just like goopy liquid. It's indiscernible. I
Goopy liquid.
wouldn't
Okay.
choose Electric Callboy, because again, I kind of picked around through singles. I didn't really focus heavily on their album Techno, and even their album Techno doesn't really have much cover art. It's just the word techno on a black background. And you don't, without being mean, I'm I'm not a fan of the cover art for Bring Me the Horizons album. I think it looks bad.
Hmm.
It's supposed to be this like creepy porcelain doll, a little girl thing. I don't think it's very good art. So by default, I would probably go with Bad Omens. And yeah, I would just get out a Sharpie, and I would do a crude, crappy drawing of a naked woman sitting on a bench, just like leaning forward with her head in her lap, and just like their album cover. But
Hmm.
again, it would just be a crude, half-assed drawing of it in Sharpie. One thing we also normally did is we always would write on it, the inevitability of Jawsomeness, volume whatever, and we would probably put a little tiny shark somewhere around there as
Hmm.
well. So, maybe in this one, I draw the woman sitting on the bench, and then under the bench is a shark, something like that. That was kind of the gist of things.
Huh. Yeah, good call. Or, I mean, she's bending over a
Yeah,
little bit,
she's
so
like,
you
looks
kind of
like
just.
she's like slumped over,
Mhm.
maybe not alive, or like in some ways incapacitated or passed out. And she, yeah, just has her head down in her lap between her knees, her arms slacked down at her side, lifeless. And yeah, I'd probably just draw that person sitting on a table, and then underneath the table would be a shark, and that would
Yeah,
be it. That would be the album.
nice. Well, Heath, thank you very much for sharing this. I hope that you will come back on a not like we talked a little bit about, I'd love to have you on monthly, and then I'm like, wait a second, you've got a life too. You've got your own
I do.
podcast, you write a bunch of stuff, you've got a job, you've got kids, all of that stuff. So,
But I love doing this, so I would like to come on more. It's just finding the time, and finding the right list that makes
mhm,
sense. I'm not the kind of person that makes playlists just to make playlists.
mhm,
Like, to me, this is something I do when I'm very passionate and something speaks to me, and I want to hear a very specific sound. And so because of that, I just don't do that often. I don't have enough to share. But
mhm,
with that said, like I said, it's already been over half a year since I made this, and I've already started thinking of the next one. And I already know two of the
mhm.
four-ish bands I want to feature based off of new albums that came out this year. So I wouldn't be shocked if I have something ready soon that we could put together.
Cool. So just let me know. Heath will also be on a very special episode coming up soon. It's been requested a couple of times to do a Disney album, and
Heck
I,
yeah, that I
I'm
can do.
I'm bringing in a bunch of people for that one, and it's it's going to be a very interesting conversation, I would say.
Contentious,
Yeah,
some might say.
yeah, I fully anticipate that the four of us will not be friends by the end because somebody's feelings will inevitably be hurt.
So are you familiar with the comedian? And I know you're a huge fan of stand-up comedy like I am, so you probably are. Mike Birbiglia.
Yeah.
I relate to Mike Birbiglia. And when he talks about how he has conversations with his wife, and he says, the reason why we have fights and arguments is because I'm right. And she doesn't understand that I'm right. And it's frustrating because she just needs to accept that I'm right. And I think that's the main dilemma here is that you guys just need to understand that I'm right. And I know what the best Disney songs are. And so long as we can all come to that very definitive conclusion, everything will be fine, and it will be fine. It will be
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Okay.
Not looking at you specifically or Patrice, but someone else that might be on just needs to understand that I'm right, and that's okay. It's okay for me to be right and you to not be right.
So all of this to say,
Love
Patrice
you,
and
Nick.
I are going to be getting popcorn, and we're just going to maybe just find ways just to inject a little bit
Oh
of
yeah.
levity into the conversation and go from there.
And I want to be clear about something because I feel like some people don't understand the dynamic. I love Nick, and
Yeah.
you know that. But I've had people reach out to me and be like, you and Nick are so mean to each other. I really want to say this is our love language.
Yeah.
We love debating and arguing semantic bullshit that we know does not matter. And there's nothing more stupid than opinions over film or songs, or especially like the ranked tier order of the MCU. Like, I am well aware in the grand scheme of things that does not matter. We have fascist police in the form of ICE in our
Mhm.
country, black bagging people and putting them into vans. Like, Nick having the wrong opinion that Ant-Man and the Wasp is a good movie is not a problem in the grand scheme of things. It's just a problem to me. And so because of that, like, we just like to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I just want to be really clear. I love Nick and he knows that. And I love it when he gives me crap about my picks too. So it should be a fun time. I anticipate a lot of laughter as
Yeah.
much as I anticipate all caps yelling. So
I would agree with that. And again, believe it or not, people can find ways to disagree with the other person and still
yep.
manage to be friends with one
Yep.
another. So, like certain topics, yeah, argue away and probably friendships ruin. But at the end of the day, something like music, TV, movies, all of that stuff, feel free to argue and we could still be friends at the end of
I'm
the day.
very excited for this episode. We've already been talking about it a lot in that Slack channel. We're all big millennial Disney heads that never grew up, and we have very definitive opinions and stances on all of these. It should be a lot of fun. I distinctly know which movies and songs and stuff I prefer, and I'm ready to go to battle to defend those and make sure the right songs get up on this list.
Very nice. Well,
Yes.
Heath, where can the people find you and do you have anything that you want to plug?
Sure. If you actually care about my takes and my stupid opinions, God bless you, first off. But second, you can follow me on Letterboxd, search the one Heath bar or Heath Lynch, and you can see all my deranged film takes and all of my ranked lists. And God, I have too many of them. They're all there. Or if you want to hear more of my verbal vomit and ramblings, I do have a podcast. It's called Franchise Paradiso. It's hosted with friends of the show, Rowan Wood and Foster Harlfinger, where we lament the fact that more original stuff is not really happening at the rate we would like. And we don't get that many great films anymore that aren't franchise films. So we just revel in what we're force fed and we talk about franchise films. And that's what we do. And we did a season on horror films, we did a season on superhero films. We're almost ready to start a season on action films. And even between season episodes, we talk about just new releases and Oscars and blockbuster summer box offices and all kinds of fun stuff. So if any of that sounds fun, you can follow me at Franchise Paradiso, the podcast, or on Letterboxd. Either one.
Heath has made a number of appearances on a bunch of other SPDM things as well as my other podcast with my buddy Nick, or our buddy Nick, rather, Geek Speak Louder Than Nerds. So Heath, always look forward to chatting with you about anything and everything. So
I love it
glad
every time.
glad that you were able to come on, and looking forward to having you on again soon.
And again, thank you so much for having me. I genuinely appreciate it.
Well, my friends, the time has come to end this episode of Mix CD. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website soon to be out at spdmcrew.com. You could follow our playlist on Spotify and Apple Music at Mike Hilty. Shout out to High Flyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at highflyercreative.com. If you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, no matter what happens now, you shouldn't be afraid, because I know today has been the most perfect day I've ever seen.